Becky, who's administering today for us and looking after all of the IT side, which is always fun. We have two presenters this morning, which are Paula Mawson, Strategy and Commissioning Manager for Health, Wellbeing and Self-Care, and Nisha Mehmetovic-Bai, who's Wellbeing and Resilience Commissioner. And we're also joined by Heather Boyd, who's Category Specialist in Strategic Procurement, to help with any technical procurement issues for the question and answer section. As I outlined before a few more people joined us, we're recording today's event, so now's the time to put your camera off if you would like to remain anonymous and have a bit of a stretch as we go through the hour-and-a-half session. The chat is open for any questions on the fund as they come up to you, and we will be logging those in a Q&A session later on this morning. There will be a range of support offered throughout the morning, so as Nisha outlined, you can watch the film back and you will get a copy of the slides. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Paula for the first presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Becky, are you okay to share the presentation slides? Whilst Becky, fingers crossed, gets the technical bits working, I'll just introduce myself properly to you all and say a huge welcome from me. So for those who don't know me, I'm Paula Mawson. I'm one of the Strategy and Commissioning Managers in the People Group at Warwickshire County Council. So I lead the Health, Wellbeing and Self-Care team, and my team is very much focused on what can we do to support people to stay well, to be well, to maintain their independence at home, to think about our families particularly and how we can look after, you know, people, our children and young people, right through to our older adults. Part of my team includes a focus on mental well-being. So how can we support and enable people to look after their mental health, to take care of it, to see it as a resource to enable them to kind of live, you know, the lives that they want to lead. So I lead that team, and I'm really pleased to be here this morning to kind of start the conversation with you all about this fund. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic to see how many people have booked on to attend today and the interest that we've seen from, you know, a whole range of organisations. I mean, it's fantastic already just seeing the names popping up in the chats about some of the organisations that are here. So before I say anything else, I just want to say thank you to you all for kind of showing an interest in this opportunity, because I think there's an immense opportunity here for us to support people to recover or to start to recover from some of the trials and tribulations of this last year, particularly through the pandemic. So really great to see you all. And Becky, could you move on to the next slide, please? So we all know, I mean, I think the fact that you're all here today is a sign that you know what a hard time this has been for people's mental health through the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's possibly for two reasons. I think there's those individuals who've had a direct impact. Perhaps they've had a significant loss of a loved one or a family member. Maybe they've experienced COVID themselves and it's left them with worries and anxieties about their own health. It could also be that people have had not a direct impact from COVID-19, but it's still impacted on their mental well-being. So we've all experienced, you know, the challenges of these never-ending lockdowns. People have lost work during this time. The disruptions to your kind of social connections, the things that we normally do to cope with challenging times, we've kind of lost a lot of those over this last year. And some people may have found others that have worked well for them. Others perhaps have really struggled with that. And I think for all of us, both as in our professional lives, but actually in our personal lives too, we've all been on a bit of a journey through this last year. And we've all probably had days where we found the going really, really hard. So one of the things that we were thinking about, and this was back probably in November of last year, was how can we start to put some additional support in place for people, and additional support to those services that we already Ready commission. So some of you will know that Warwickshire County Council does fund a range of services for people's mental health and wellbeing already, and there's further information available on the council's website. I think if Freddie's on the call, she could probably put the page into the chat box so people can see it. But we felt actually we need to do more to support people to recover, and we need to particularly reach some of those grassroots organisations and think about how we can support you all in the work that you're doing. So Becky, can you move on to my last slide? So as I say, from a council's perspective, we already prioritise mental health and wellbeing. We have a whole range of commissioned provision, and we work in partnership across the Health and Care Partnership for Mental Health to support the kind of strategic approach to mental health services. I think we all know, as I've said, that the evidence of need relating to mental health and particularly loneliness and social isolation is strong. I had a look this morning at the Mental Health Foundation's webpage, and I don't know if you're aware, but they've been running a kind of a mental health pandemic research programme. And I looked at some of the latest update, which was from February of this year. And these were some of the stats that kind of jumped out at me. So in March 2020, the feelings of loneliness was at around 10%. In February 21, 26% of people were reporting feeling lonely or socially isolated, but there were particular groups where that feeling was much stronger. So in young people aged 18 to 24, 48% of the young people that were surveyed were feeling lonely and socially isolated. Back in March of last year, when the pandemic was really starting, 62% of people felt that they were feeling anxious and worried because of what was happening. In February of this year, that figure had reduced, but it was still at 42%, almost half of the population feeling anxious and worried. And that's some of the reasons why we wanted to do something about this agenda. The council published towards the end of last year its COVID-19 recovery and restoration plan, and that included an explicit priority to support the mental health and wellbeing of Warwickshire residents. So as a result, my team have been given additional funding to support us to improve the mental health of Warwickshire residents. Our total programme is just over 1.3 million, but this particular programme, as you'll hear, this particular fund is £750,000. We really hope that by working with you all, by sharing kind of what our vision is for this fund and the difference that we hope it's going to make today, that we will collectively be able to make a difference to our residents' lives. That's why we're here. We want to reach people who are perhaps feeling vulnerable, feeling unsupported, or where you're struggling with the capacity to deliver the provision that you already have, but you might need more capacity to enable you to do more. That's the kind of, that's the reason that we're here. Just really pleased to see so many of you here today. Do make use of the chat. Do ask us your questions, because we want to get the best out of this fund, and we need to know how we can support you to deliver that. So that's all I really wanted to say. I'm going to hand you over to Nisha now, who's going to talk you through the detail of the fund, but I will keep in touch via the chat message. So over to you, Nish.
Thank you. Okay, when Becky stops sharing her slides, I'll add mine on. Sorry, my system has froze, bear with me.
Oh, it's typical, isn't it? I don't think it's going to allow us to take control either, is it? So one of us could unshare for you.
We might be in 2021, but this is still technical issues when it comes to virtual events, everybody, which I'm sure you've all experienced.
Makes the sessions even more fun, doesn't it?
It does.
Absolutely.
About the technical challenges.
Nish, do you want to try and share
Let's
your screen and just see what
override.
it does? Yeah, see if it allows you to override if Becky's frozen. The only other thing is, yeah, there you go. I can see Nisha.
Thank you. Fab. Hi. Thanks, Paula, for the introduction. My name's Nisha Matovich-Bai and I'm the Wellbeing and Resilience Commissioner. So what my presentation is going to entail is the overview and the application process of Warwickshire's COVID-19 Mental Wellbeing and Resilience Fund. So the fund, as Paula said, is £750,000, and the fund is available for community and voluntary sector organisations, including parish and town councils and small to medium businesses that do not have access to an employee assistance programme to support Warwickshire residents' mental health and wellbeing both during and throughout the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. What this funding opportunity also provides is capital funding to make physical improvements to buildings and outdoor spaces to make environments more mental health friendly. So the funding, £750,000, and we provisionally are allocating £250,000 to capital spending. Now, the fund is open to investments under 3 thresholds. Threshold 1, which is a minimum of £6,000, up to a maximum of £10,000. Threshold 2, over £10,000 to a maximum of £25,000. And threshold 3, over £25,000 to a maximum of £50,000. So those that are on the call, you'll be thinking where you sit within those thresholds. The first round of funding will be launched this Friday, so Friday the 21st of May, and it will run until Monday the 21st of June. A second round of funding might be available if the funding is not allocated in that first round. This is one-off funding available, and it's purely to respond to the mental health impacts of the pandemic. And what we are asking for is that bidders outline how they seek to ensure sustainability of their projects. As it is one-off spending, it must be spent within the next 12 months of the funding award date. So we do have some restrictions. As I said with the first, with regards to the thresholds, the minimum that you can bid for is £6,000. If you require investment under threshold 2 and 3, which is over £10,000, with the exclusion of capital funding, you'll be allocated the funds in 2 stages. You'll have 50% awarded at the funding award date, and then you will receive 50% following the first submission of the progress update report. And they're quarterly. So if you think about it, you're awarded the first 50%, 3 months later, you will receive the next 50%. And I will talk to you later on about the evaluation process. So what do we intend the Warwickshire COVID-19 Mental Wellbeing and Resilience Fund to do? What's the benefits? So you want community and business projects and initiatives at a local level to achieve the following. We want to improve the mental health, wellbeing and resilience of our residents and local workforces by responding to the pressures of the pandemic. We want to support residents that have mental health concerns. These could be exacerbated due to the pandemic. They could be new and emerging as a result of the pandemic. We want to provide support to encourage residents to go back to activities or start activities which support their development in terms of wellbeing and resilience. And I think we all miss that sense of social connection. We want to get communities back together. We also want to use this fund as an opportunity to create spaces that are safe in the community, where people are experiencing mental distress can go for a period of time to unwind, feel safe before they carry on with their activities. And as I mentioned that we've got capital funding, we want to create physical environments where people can connect with nature, reconnect if they've never been, engaging in nature and outdoor activities to enhance their sense of well-being. What we also want this fund to do is support specific trauma, self-harm, suicide prevention and bereavement interventions. And what we do ask is that you work in partnership with people with lived experience, both in the design and the delivery of the project. I appreciate that's a lot to take in. Remember, you are going to get these slides. So who can apply for the funding? Like Paula said at the beginning, the proposals that we want people to include those that have been directly affected by the pandemic, so that you could be recovering from COVID-19, but also those that have been indirectly impacted. And the funding is available to the community and voluntary sector organisations, including town and parish councils, and small to medium businesses that do not have access to an employee assistance programme. Who can't apply? Individuals, party political groups, organisations with significant free uncommitted reserves, NHS trusts, county council or district and borough councils. So the application process. So the applications are made using the council's e-tendering system. Some of you may know about this system. It's called CSW Jets. You must register with this system to be able to express an interest and download the documents. As I said, the applications open this Friday, Friday the 21st of May, and you must submit by noon, Monday the 21st of June. You can submit at any time, but funding decisions will only be made following that deadline date. Some of you on this call might never have heard of CSW Jets. So what we've done is we've created support sheets to help you use that system. We've got one sheet based on registration, so how you access that system. We have another help sheet on managing your account. So some of you may have used CSW Jets in the past, but you're unsure and you forgot your login details or how to get back on. So that fact sheet will help with that. And then also locating and managing a tender. We do have a web page which I will share at the end of this presentation, and that is where you'll be able to find these documents. So once it's live on Friday, the 21st of May, you'll be able to find this funding opportunity under tenders. And you can either search it by the number that's given there or the short title that's given there as well. So using CSW Jets is totally free. So you don't have to pay for it. Now, when you joined Eventbrite, there was an email address that you could correspond with us. Now that email account, if you've got any questions from now until Friday, you can email using that mental wellbeing funds.warwickshire.gov.uk. You can use that email account. But once the application form is live, any questions, queries that you have relating to this funding opportunity, you must do via the correspondence function. Again, those fact sheets will really help you out. The reason why we ask you to do that is because we have a dialogue then with you, and also somebody else might be asking exactly the same question, and we are being open and transparent. If you do struggle to register, to navigate the system on CSW Jets, we do have a specific email address, procurement@warwickshire.gov.uk, that you can email and seek advice. But like I say, please do look at those help sheets because they are step by step giving you advice to kind of help you with those questions. But again, you've got that email address if you do need it. So when we've got the funding bids in, what will happen from an evaluation perspective is that we have a panel of county council officers, including experts, that will go through those application forms. Now, we might need to get clarification from you, so please be ready if we are going to, for example, we need some clarification, what are you going to say? Just be ready and aware that we will be kind of wanting a quick response with that. Now, because of the volume of people that are going to come through the door, we don't really know how many we're going to have. Our approval process, we haven't got a specific time period that we've given ourselves, but what we will do is provide a monthly update via CSW Jets, telling you how far we are in the approval process. So please keep checking that system. That is how we communicate with you. And once obviously you are successful, again, that communication via CSW Jets is the key thing within this. We as an organisation communicate via CSW Jets with you. So from a monitoring and evaluation perspective, We obviously want to monitor and evaluate how you are using the money and what you are doing to support communities and activities within your areas. So we will want you to support our evaluation process. Now, it will be specific to the threshold that you've applied for. For example, if you're applying for £6,000, your evaluation process will be completely different to if you're applying for £50,000. We're going to be working with you throughout this to capture impacts and outcomes, and we will be using recommended tools to measure change and impact. For example, WEPS, which is a mental wellbeing tool, so that we will work with you and highlight the tools that we're going to use to measure impact. And what we want to be doing throughout that 12-month process is we will be asking for quarterly progress reports on how you are doing. Again, like I said right at the beginning with the funding, is that after you've had 50% if you're in threshold 2 and 3 from funding award date, 3 months later, you then receive 50% of the funding. So that progress report's really important. Also, it creates a dialogue between you and I. We can understand how you're doing, what activities are progressing, what themes are emerging that you didn't expect. We want to kind of understand how impactful the work that you are doing is having on our communities. So the next 2 slides, that there is a lot of text. Now, we're saying, and remember, this isn't an exhaustive list, but we're trying to give you a snapshot of the things that we would like you to consider. So the projects could include you're enhancing residents' wellbeing and resilience through the life course, and you are being inclusive. We also want projects that help working age people at risk of stress, anxiety and depression. We want projects that include an inclusive and protective support system for mental health and emotional wellbeing of children, young people and families. And as you can see, there's a few others there around directing support for people experiencing mental wellbeing or aiming to reduce significant risk factors amongst people with or without a mental health diagnosis in the community. We want to support those that are experiencing mental distress and feeling suicidal or at risk of self-harm. Remember, you do get these slides as well at the end. Some more projects that you might include consist of, we want to provide support for those who've experienced trauma, particularly as a direct or indirect result of the pandemic. We want to increase capacity of voluntary and community and social enterprises, organisations to address the increased demand and complexity of bereavement during the pandemic. With the capital spending, it's about looking at physical environments that promote mental health. Can we make places more light, airy? Can we develop and access open spaces to outdoor provision? And equally, we want to support efforts to address health inequalities within local communities and neighbourhoods. I appreciate that's a lot of information, and again, you will be getting these slides. So the Mental Health and Wellbeing Resilience Fund, there is a specific web page that has all of the information that I've touched on today. Again, that's going to be put in the chat function for you so that you can access that. And after today's events, this video will be on there along with the slides. The applications open this Friday, so Friday the 21st of May, and they must be submitted by 12 noon on Monday the 21st of June. Tracy, over to you.
Thanks, Nisha, much appreciated. In my excitement to get this morning going, I was remiss in introducing myself. I'm Tracy Southam, Area Manager from Warwickshire Community and Voluntary Action. We've had a handful of questions in the chat. Paula and Heather were kindly answering a couple before we got going, but I will repeat them just in case anybody missed the questions that were raised. One applicant asked if documents could be downloaded ahead of the Friday release date on CSW Jets, and that was a clear no. There was another question about compatibility of CSW Jets with Chrome, and it was suggested that Internet Explorer is a safer browser. So that was really helpful. One question that has been raised is, can you apply for more than one threshold for different projects? Paula, I can see you've got your hand raised.
So I'll jump in there. I think, yes, you can. What I would say is, as long as they're kind of completely separate projects that you want to be evaluated on their own merit. So there's no issue with that, but obviously we will look at them as separate projects and evaluate them accordingly. Don't know if Heather or Nish want to add to that.
No, I agree.
Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah.
Thanks, Heather. So second question was, is the employee assistance programme restriction only relevant to businesses, or does that also apply to charities?
It only applies to businesses in this context. It's the way that we're targeting that sector. So we're not completely flooded with submissions, and we're really targeting them to those staff working in workplaces that just don't have access to really any formal support. So yeah.
That's lovely, thank you very much. Next question was, are available funds split across the threshold groups, or will awards be made purely on project merit?
So that will be based on merit.
Okay. Did you have something you wanted to add, Heather? I saw you flick up.
No. I was just watching all these things pinging up in the corner of my screen. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No problem. No problem. Is there a guide to what threshold can be applied for, e.g., linked to our income or the size of the project? I think, are there any restrictions on what turnover you have for different levels? I think
it's all based on the project and what you actually want to deliver and the outcomes that you're looking to make. So that's entirely, for people's own choice.
Okay, lovely. Next one is, will there be a geographical allocation based on needs, i.e. those areas with greater need will be allocated a higher amount?
No, again, it would be based on the project. So again, like what Paula just said, when it comes to the threshold of money, this is all about the projects, what you see in your communities and that need. It's very project led.
Yeah, so you're not doing it based on high levels of deprivation or anything like that. Lovely, thank you. There's another question about, are projects aimed at school children relevant?
Yes. Yes, all ages, any ages and every age. So yeah, definitely.
Across the life course.
Okay, great. And there's another question about charities that also establishes businesses. My understanding is that as long as there's charitable status, that's an eligibility for the fund. Yeah. Okay. Is there any reason why it's a minimum of 6,000? We have a local project where we would only need 4,000. Therefore, this is a tad frustrating.
The reason why it's
Go on, Aisha.
The reason why it's 6,000 is because from a capital spending perspective, the council has to have the minimum threshold at £6,000. So that is why it's £6,000. For that person who said that around 4,000, there are other grants that are available within the council. So you might want to be looking at councillor grants. We can send some information around what other grants are available within the council. But the reason why we've capped it at a minimum of 6,000 is because, again, if you're just applying for capital spending, that has to be a minimum of £6,000.
Lovely, thank you. And Nigel, we're very happy to give you some funding advice as well if you want to identify other funders. We're coming on to our support shortly. So there's a question about the timescales. I know the timescale isn't known as yet, but do you have any vague indication? Are we talking a number of weeks or are we talking about a number of months? As this applicant wouldn't be in a position to start spending for a few more months. So I think that's about the process timescale.
It's a really difficult one for us to. Anisha and I had a conversation about it, didn't we? Like, do we give a rough timetable? But because we have no clue how many bids we're going to get back in, and that will be the determining factor in terms of how long it takes us. So if we had 10 bids in, we turn it around really quickly. If we have 100 bids in, it's going to take us a lot of time to kind of go through those. And that's why we said we would put regular updates on JETS about where we're at with the evaluation process. And I think once we've got them in, we'll have a better sense at that point how long it's going to take us, and then we'll be able to get some information up on Jets to let people know. In terms of a start date in a couple of months, I personally don't have an issue with that. I think if it's clear in your bid that your start date is a couple of months time, and you will spend the money as we need you to before the year is up, that's no issue from my perspective. So I hope that doesn't I hope that encourages you to still apply.
Thank you, Paula. There's a question about applying for a capital bid and then a separate bid for a frontline project. So I guess that's a similar question to applying for more than one threshold.
In the application form, it will ask you, are you solely applying for capital spending or a combination of both? And the reason why we've put the bid together is so that people can do an application form for both under one form. So yeah, that's fine, as long as you have to be clear of where the money's going. X amount is for capital, X is for revenue.
I think the question might be more along the lines of, if they were applying for the maximum amount of capital, could they apply separately for a revenue project? I think that may be more where it was going. If that isn't the case, Kirsten, can you drop a reply in the chat for me? We'll come back to that one in a second. For projects targeting school children, can they be delivered during curriculum time, or does it have to be extracurricular?
No, I think it's whatever programme you're delivering. So yeah, fine with either.
Lovely. Can the funding be used along other grant funding for the same programme, e.g. a contribution from the National Lottery Fund?
Yeah, match funding's fine.
Yeah.
Just be clear in your application, I would say, about just so we're cited on it. But again, that there's no issues around that from our perspective. Okay,
and then there's another question about schools, which I think we've answered, around projects being eligible to take place in a school setting. So I think we've covered that one a couple of times. Fine. Yeah, so Kirsten's come back to me. The question was, if they applied for a full capital project, could they apply for a revenue project separately? So it wouldn't fit under that one threshold of 50k, for example.
So I think it would depend. I'm thinking out loud now, so bear with me. I think it would depend whether it's the one project or whether they're two separate projects.
Two different projects.
So if they're two different projects, then I think, just as we've said before, you can apply for two separate projects, and that's absolutely fine. I think the one project, we've got a maximum award that we would make of 50k. So I hope that kind of helps to clarify that bit.
Lovely. And Amanda's kindly put an update in the chat for information around the launch of the Councillors Grants Fund on the 24th of May. So that's really helpful. Thank you, Amanda, for that. I think that's the end of the questions. I had one that I thought of as you were going through the presentation, which might be a question that comes up later. Based on the fact that you've got the three thresholds, are you expecting different levels of consultation with service users, or is it a standard approach across the piece, so evidencing need?
Yeah, I think it's about a proportionate approach. So, I wouldn't expect a level 1 threshold to have the same level of engagement as a level 3. I think it's about what's proportionate and feels right for your particular project or programme.
That's really helpful, Paula. Thank you. So that's the end of the question and answer section. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Phoebe Hilton, who's going to just update on the support that Warwickshire Carver can provide, and then I'll come back and close the session. Thanks, Phoebe. Oh, could you unmute Phoebe, Becky, so that she can speak?
Hi everyone, sorry about that. I was trying and it wasn't working. Thanks, Becky. So my name's Phoebe, as Tracy said, and I'm a Funding and Group Development Officer for Warwickshire Community and Voluntary Action in Rugby Borough. So we are the infrastructure organisation for Warwickshire and Solihull, supporting voluntary, community and social enterprise organisations across the county. So we have offices in different localities across the county, in Warwick District, Stratford, Rugby Borough, North Warwickshire, Nuneaton and Bedworth and Rugby. and there is a team member for funding and group development officers like me and volunteering coordinators in each of those localities. So between us, we deliver 3 key services: fundraising, group development and volunteering. So under fundraising, we can support with a number of different avenues, signposting to appropriate and relevant funders, connecting communities with funders through Meet the Funder events, and also we can proofread bids after they've been written and support with that aspect of the application process. Group development wise, we can support your organisation with your policies, your legal structure. So if you wanted to formalise as a community group looking to become a charity or a social enterprise, we can support you with that, as well as connecting communities to other organisations, creating partnerships and bringing communities together. So they're the key aspects of those two strands. We also, with volunteering, connect volunteers to local voluntary organisations, support with the recruitment of volunteers, including trustees, and we also have upcoming volunteering celebrations to celebrate the impact of volunteers during the pandemic. So nominations are open. We have all of that information on our Twitter pages, or you can get in touch with your local volunteering coordinator. All of their information is on our website, as well as the funding and group development officer information as well. So I can pop that in the chat once I'm done, unless Leonie or Tracy can pop that in the chat for us. But we're also this year encouraging people to contact our volunteering coordinators to celebrate people who unfortunately we've lost during the pandemic, who've had an outstanding contribution to the local community as volunteers as well. So if you have any nominations that you'd like to make in that particular avenue, get in touch with your volunteer coordinator as well. So in all of this, we offer lots of opportunities through networks, forums, training, to learn more and connect with others, as well as having an online resource library, both for volunteering and funding and group development. So I think that's a stop-dash tour of everything. But if you have any questions, or you have any projects or ideas that you'd like to discuss with us, just go on our website and find your local team member. Thank you.
Thanks, Phoebe. We'll ensure that a list of all the contacts is shared with the slides, etc., that Becky's going to circulate. Just to say, obviously, there's a requirement for this fund to be constituted. So if you are a group that needs support and advice around that, we'd be delighted to help you. But we would suggest, based on a 4-week window, that you don't leave it until a couple of days before, because these things take time. So thanks very much for attending today's event. As outlined, the procurement information will be released on Friday, and there will be a requirement to upload your application to the system. We'd suggest that you get registered on CSW Jet sooner rather than later and get yourself conversant with the system and use the help sheets that have been provided. But aside from that, wishing you all the best for your applications. Thanks for your interest in this fund, and we look forward to seeing some great projects across Warwickshire. Thanks. You're free to leave. Thanks very much.